Spirit Talk Live with Scott Allen is for entertainment purposes only.
My dear friend, a wonderfully, wonderfully gifted medium. I've seen him in action. It would blow your minds wide open. He's just incredible.
Patrick from London, you are on the air. Welcome to the show.
I mean, this reading has meant more to me than anything. And I'm so grateful.
Hi, my name is Scott Allen. I'm very happy to be with you today. And, you know, it isn't every week that the guest isn't here in time for the show, but I knew this might happen because our guest tonight is on a case. And I do think he will be here, but, you know, unless he reaches out to me with some kind of an emergency, he is working with a really difficult case right at the moment. I want to tell you a little bit about our show tonight, and then we'll talk about some other things waiting for him to arrive. You know, I don't think that Ed and Lorraine Warren need any kind of an explanation. They are, you know, for all intents and purposes, paranormal royalty, quite frankly. And if you have anything to do with the paranormal world, and you have anything to do with the spiritual world, you must know who they are. His grandson, their grandson, will be here with us tonight, I hope, unless he gets stuck on this case. But more on that later. I want to share a little bit more about him, and I want to share a little bit more about his grandparents, and we are going to be talking with them. And hopefully you'll have the opportunity to call in, chat, and find a little bit more about what he's going on, carrying on the work of his grandparents, Ed and Lorraine Warren. I also want to just talk a little bit about some things coming on. You know, we spent some time at the Enfield Demon House in Enfield, Connecticut, and we are working on that project still. We're hoping to bring you a podcast connected to that as well as the documentary. And we do have some live shows coming up that I want to point out to you. Going to be in two new events. One is in New Hampshire, Lebanon, New Hampshire, way up north near Dartmouth College. We are going to be there on December 12th doing a holiday spirit event. And we will be at the very, very famous and very, very haunted Concord Colonial Inn in Concord, Massachusetts, home of the American Revolution. We will be there doing an afternoon show on Sunday, the 8th of December. So keep an eye out for those. Those are going to be coming soon. Also, private events and private bookings are really kind of going like crazy right through the end of the year. The dates are dwindling. So if you're looking for an event, if you're looking for a private event, if you're looking for a reading, this would be a really good time to go in and check that out before they're all gone for the rest of the year. Now, on that note, since we are waiting for Chris, and I'm going to keep checking here because I want to make sure he's not waiting to chat with me. He's not yet. Like I said, I knew that he was on this case, so hopefully he'll be along with us soon. You know, I want to talk about sort of the elephant in the paranormal room, and there's a few of us here, and I think we can talk about this a little bit together. It's kind of important to me that we keep this positive. I want to say hi to Nancy. Hi, Nancy. How are you? Good to see you. Also, Ashley Martin. Ashley, nice to see you as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. Anna, hello. Glad you're here. And Ashley, yeah, it's going to be a great show. Yes, if he makes it, I have all the confidence in the world that Chris is going to be here tonight. And if he isn't, we will definitely reschedule him. But I know he's on a tough case, so I'm hoping that he will be able to join us in just a short time. I want to talk about something that's been going on in the paranormal world here. But I want to keep it positive. I'd really like to engage in a conversation with all of you. And it is about what's going on in Rhode Island at the farm on Round Top Road. I would love to hear your feelings about this. Now, I'm not going to go into the negative. I don't want to go into, you know, that kind of a thing. But there has been a lot out there. There have been videos. there have been a lot of YouTube videos, not just the people who are involved, but people who are not involved, who are sort of sitting on the sidelines rather, and sharing their thoughts and opinions on what's been happening there. So just in short, they had a staff who left, and there's been a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on. There have been texts back and forth, money's not being paid. The price to get into the house is just astronomical. It is through the roof. And I do believe that there is a boycott Conjuring house movement going on. I've seen that online. And I'm wondering if anyone has had the opportunity to learn more about this. If you've been to the house, if you have paid to get into the house, if you know anyone that's had anything to do with the house, and how things are going. Like I said, I really do want to, from my perspective, I want to keep it positive. But I know some of the parties involved, and I'm sure that there is more here than meets the eye. And I've been there a few times, but I don't know that I would go now. And that's just me. I'm not encouraging anyone to go or not go. I just think with the pricing the way it is and some of the things that I've seen, I kind of want to wait for some of that to die down. So let's just go here. Jennifer Payne. Hi, Jennifer. How are you? So good to see you. Nice to have you. And Ashley, I don't think so. He does not. That is actually his stepfather, Tony Spera, that has that. He's the one that runs the Warrens Paragon. That is his stepdad. So his mom's second husband. She has that. Chris has the Warren Legacy Foundation, which carries on their work. So let's see. Nancy, my feeling is the owner has a mental issue that needs to be addressed, and it seems nobody is willing to step up. Well, I think, Nancy, too, if we want to talk about that, I don't think that, certainly I know I'm not qualified to diagnose anyone, certainly based on what I've seen. I do think things are off. I don't think I'm qualified to say that anyone has a mental issue. What I feel privately is, maybe a little different. But I do think that there is some definite issues there. And, they probably have a case with the employment board and so forth. But I think that, I don't know about mental. It sounds like there's something definitely going on here that doesn't feel right. Ashley says she'd love to go. Yeah, it really is a special home, and it has been for a lot of people for a lot of time. And as I said, I've been there. I was there when the Heinzens owned it. I did go once when I was, let's see, I think Jacqueline had owned it already at that time. I've been once since she owned it, and it was fine. I didn't see her there. She wasn't there. She was off doing her thing. So I didn't have any interaction. And I think that was back early on in the days. Let's see. Nancy, why her own family and legal team can't see that she needs help just boggles my mind. Well, I think, Nancy, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what she has for family. I don't know. I don't know that she has family. I don't know that she has anyone there to help her. I know that the staff was quite involved for a while with trying to help keep her afloat, making sure that there were people there when the guests came, the ones that had booked reservations for overnight or whatever. And so they were doing a heck of a job, stand-up job, really trying to keep that place going until they just were unable to do it anymore, from what I understand. And I have not talked with any of these people personally about any of this. And that's why I'm throwing it out to all of you, because I'm just curious to see what you think. Anna, I'm unfamiliar with the house. Can you give back a summary of the story? Anna, I don't know if you're unfamiliar with the house or you're unfamiliar with the story. So the house is the farm on Round Top Road. The house is the house that the Perrons lived in that became the inspiration for the Conjuring movies. Andrea Perron, who is the oldest daughter, wrote the trilogy House of Darkness, House of Light. It was picked up and it was turned into this movie called The Conjuring. Now, most of the whole Conjuring thing is not, I think Andrea calls it more Holly weird than Hollywood. So it's not It's not really, I mean, there are like little snippets that probably are based in truth, but it's not the real truth. But the house is there and the house is haunted. There's a lot going on there, and it's not always what you would think of as frightening. It's certainly not like the movie, but it is haunted, and there is something to it for sure that it has had effects on people who have lived there and spent a lot of time in that house. But I've also been there and felt very, very comfortable and very, very much at home. So it's an interesting space, to say the least. But the story, from what I can gather, is that the employees have all left because they had some kind of, not just a financial dispute. There was a story with a barn that burned down, and Satori and Cody, who had their things there, were promised money. I mean, this is what I'm reading. I don't know this for a fact. This is what I'm reading, and this is what I'm hearing from them. And they had an opportunity to turn this barn into their museum, but the barn burned, and now they're not getting the money from insurance. This is what the story is that's out right now. So also there are employees who haven't been paid, and then one of the employees, who was the manager, said that he was fired because John Arnold, who died back in, I don't know, 1830 something, I think, told the owner that he was stealing money from the cash box at the house. And that's an indication that something's not right. That's not mediumship, right? So I'm a medium. I do that stuff. That is not what it looks like. That doesn't feel right to me. Yeah, Anna. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. So I think that's more the story right now. It's not the story about the house. It's more of a story about the management and the employees. And I don't know who's there. I don't know if anyone is. And this is why I asked if anyone was booking anything at the house, because there really I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if there are employees there anymore. I know nothing really about any of this. So that's why I was throwing that out there. I also want to say too, I don't know where Chris is. I'm really afraid that he may have got stuck. I mean, I do know he was on a difficult case. And he does work on difficult cases. Chris is now the head of the Warren Legacy Foundation, and it carries on the work of his grandparents, Ed and Lorraine Warren. He started working with his grandparents in 1980. I believe he was only 16 years old at the time. And it's funny because he says, on his website, that according to, or after his first incredibly intense night of poltergeist activity, 2 demons walking in the room, pounding that shook the walls, levitation, growling, upside down crosses, and physical assault of the woman of the house by an entity. He never looked back. And he has assisted or led investigations on some of the Warrens' most famous cases, as well as several thousands of others. And he now leads an international network of paranormal researchers that continues the Warrens' mission all over the world. And that is the Warren Legacy Foundation, of which I am a member. I'm the medium for the Northeast chapter, and very proud to do that. So I think that if he's able to make it tonight, and I promise you we will reschedule him, but if he's not able to make it tonight, we will. If he is able to make it tonight, I think that he'll have some very, very, very interesting stories to tell, because he can tell us about Amityville. He can tell us about Annabelle. He can tell us about some of the other things that some of them are cases that he was directly involved with, and some of them are cases that his grandparents had told him about. And so I'd love for you to learn more about that. Chrissy Esposito, how are you, my friend? And Chrissy is another medium. She's been on she's coming on our show. She has not been on our show yet. Can't wait to have her. Chrissy, I don't know if you're going to be with us this weekend. I really hope that you are. So Chrissy and I belong to another organization, and it's part of the Journey Within Church in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. And we meet twice a year, September and April. And we are heading down this weekend. I'm actually driving tomorrow to Pompton Lakes for this weekend of mediumship, where we sit with some of the best. And I mean, I think in the United States, the journey within is like the epicenter for mediumship. It's connected to the Arthur Findlay College and the Spiritualist Union in the UK. And so we will all be getting together. Chrissy says she'll be seeing me. That's great. I can't wait to see you, Chrissy, tomorrow. It's such a great time, and it's a very inspirational time. We learn a lot, we practice, we spend time together, and I think when you do this kind of work, it's really important to surround yourself with your people. So I'll be seeing you, Chrissy, as well. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, so Chris has been doing all of these different cases, and you know, it's funny, while some of the types of hauntings and anybody that does this, we find out are not really hauntings. There could be something physical that's causing this. It could also be that there is some mental illness involved. I mean, that's always a consideration. You know, you gotta ask yourself, you know, what's going on in that house? Is there illness? Is there mental illness? Is there substance abuse? And sometimes you get that, right? But that's part of the job, is to figure it out. But then you get those very, very few cases where it's severe, and it can be, from what I understand, quite frightening. And so I know that he's dealing with something quite difficult today. So again, if he doesn't, we will definitely get him back on. Chrissy's saying here, they're the best, and it's an honor to be there. I'm assuming, Christy, you're talking about the journey within. I know I'm going back and forth here, but that could not be more true. I wish I actually lived closer, because I would love to be able to be more involved with that. If anybody ever has an opportunity to visit the journey within in Pompton Lakes, it's truly a magical place. It's a place of inclusion. It's a place of kindness. And it's a place where spirit just comes and manifests and speaks. And there are some of the most talented mediums I've ever met in my life right there in that spot. So if you ever have a chance to be in Pompton Lakes, I know, Chrissy, I don't know how far you are from Pompton Lakes. I know you're gonna be there. I think you're within driving distance like I am. But if you have an opportunity to go, then I would suggest it. So I think, in light of the fact that Chris is not here, I'd like to open it up to you. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you want to talk about tonight? Because I had a whole bunch of things to talk about tonight, but he's just not able to be here, it seems. So I want to talk with you about something that you want to talk about. Do you have questions? Do you have anything about mediumship? Anything about what we do? Anything about paranormal that you'd like to discuss and talk about tonight? Because sometimes we just have to punt a little bit, which is, I guess, what we're doing here. So opening up to all of you, and let's see, who else have we got here? We kind of get to everybody. Alice, Ashley, Chrissy, yeah, yep. So I think on that note, then. Oh, can you explain poltergeist to people? Can't do it now. That's the one question you can't ask, Nancy. The poltergeist. You know, I have to be honest with you, and I really wish Chris were here, because he has experienced all of this activity, and I don't know that I've seen. I don't know that I can tell you exactly what poltergeist is. My sense is that it is not. This is just my feeling, and I would, anybody that knows better than me, which is probably all of you, please speak up. But I don't know that it's human. I almost wonder if it's some kind of manifestation from the people in the house, unknowingly, unwittingly, of this energy. And the energy is almost kinetic, which moves things and makes things happen within the house. That's my sense, but I've not ever seen it in person. And I would love to hear from someone who has. I don't think that it's, that you talk about poltergeist, right? But it's not, I don't think it's not like people. It's not like energy. Now, I've seen things happen. I've seen things move. I've seen doors close and bags fall off chairs and things fly across the room. But I don't think that it's, maybe there is some sense of maybe some of that can happen with ghosts, but I don't know that it always has to be. Mary Alice says, bingo, you just said it, manifested by high emotions in the house. That's exactly what I've sort of felt. I've believed that to be the case, but I never had I've never really seen it in person other than a few things. And honestly, people, it's not like Ghost Adventures. It's not like that. You know, we go to a house. If anybody's ever been to a house that's haunted, you go, and honestly, it can be a snooze fest. I've fallen asleep at the Conjuring house in the bedroom because it was quiet and I was tired and there was nothing happening. So that can happen. That can definitely happen. And it can be busy. But those real big gotcha moments that you see on TV are so far and few between. They really, truly are. Any other questions? Mary, Alice, Smart Alec, Smart Alice. Anything else you want to talk about before we close it up? I know it's kind of a short show, but I was really hoping to talk about some of the stuff going on right now in the paranormal world, in the spiritual world. Where is everybody from? I know where Chrissy's from. I know where Mary Alice is from. Who else is here? I think that, let's see, Jennifer, I know where you're from. Ashley, I know where you're from. And I don't know where you're from. But certainly would love to know where you're all coming from and where you're at. I know you're on quite a bit. This does happen, more gotcha moments growing up than what I experience now. Let's see. In the paranormal. Yeah. I mean, do you think, Chrissy, that has anything to do with your mediumship? She's talking about gotcha moments growing up more than what she's experiencing now in the paranormal. Why do you think that is, Chrissy? Do you think that has to do with opening up? Because I'll tell you, when I was opening up to my mediumship, my gifts, it was a lot. There were a lot of gotcha moments. This was not, it was a little frightening. And I don't have that anymore either. That's not something that happens. Okay, Chrissy, I'm going to talk to you because I feel like I can lead you in this conversation, because this is something I had a conversation with another medium about just yesterday. And that is a change in the gift. Because the gift really does change. And I think we long, at least in my case, I long for the days when it was more in my face and it was easily recognizable. The gift changes over time, right? And the way I used to receive my messages, that big flash, that visual, that car or that person or that symbol shows up in your face, it happens on a much smaller scale. I don't hear. I don't necessarily even feel the same way that I used to feel. Like I would feel almost like I was standing in the middle of for lack of a better word, a champagne bottle with all the bubbles, and you could feel it going from your feet to your head. It's so much more fine-tuned than it ever was before. And I get out there and somehow I start talking and they show up. But if I find that I'm looking for what I used to experience when I would read before, that's no longer a thing. It doesn't work like that anymore. And I think it's almost as if spirit knows once they know that you got it and that you can do this, then it becomes more fine-tuned, but much more subtle. And Chrissy, if you're still here, I don't know if you can testify to that or not in your experience, if that's the case. Anybody else? Mary, I know you have some abilities that you're not necessarily using. Yeah, she's saying absolutely it changes. And Mary, I was just going to say too, like with you, I don't know, because you're still kind of figuring it all out. I don't know if you understand that, if you're able to understand how the gift changes, Chrissy says that, yes, before I felt like a boiling pot of water. Now it's more calm and subtle. It really is. And I think as a medium, it's really difficult to grapple with that because you think you've lost it. At least in my case, it's very easy. So whoever doesn't know what imposter syndrome is, imposter syndrome is kind of like you can convince yourself that it's not real, that you're making it up, that it's a coincidence, right? It's not really happening. And so when the gift subsides, it's not that the gift subsides, the symptoms of the gift, the outward expression of the gift, the feeling, the visuals, all of that tends to come back. And you are more fine-tuned, but at the same time, you can trick yourself into thinking it's gone away or it's not there. And it can frighten you because there's nothing worse than standing across from someone that's looking for a message, or in my case, across from 100 people who have paid you to come in and see you deliver messages, and you think, there's nobody here. There's absolutely nobody here. Let's see. Chrissy says, yeah, I feel like that. Like I lost it sometimes. And then they let you know that they're still there. And that's so true because as soon as I start talking, they show up. It just looks different. When I would do a gallery before, excuse me, I would stand off to the side and I had everybody planned out. I knew who was there. I could tell you who they were, what sex they were, male or female, whether they were passed for a heart attack or whether it was a car accident, I could go through the whole thing. And now that's no longer the case. I just want to say hi to Janice because I'm not sure I understand. She's saying she agrees that it's changed with age. I think her gifts are fine-tuned now. So Janice, are you alone here? Well, where do you mean alone? Because we're all with you, but I don't know. It just looks very different. Janice, I don't know that you and I have chatted before, but I'd love to chat with you a little bit. If you want to share a little bit about your experience, because clearly you understand what I'm talking about too, right? That it's changed with age, but it comes much, much more fine-tuned. Mary says, let's see, where are you, Mary? I'm scared. I'm scared about the psychic messages I get. So Mary, tell me about that a little bit. What scares you about the messages you get? What scares you about that? Are you afraid that they seem prophetic? Or are you afraid that you're not sure where they're coming from? Maybe explain that a little bit. I would love to hear what you mean. Seems I am one. I am one. And I am confused. So I'm just going to say that to you. I have no idea. But you're one of us? Is that what you mean? You're one of us? Or I don't know what you mean. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting thing. Hello, Tom Gormley. Nice to see you, my friend. Leveling Up. Good to see you. You always chat in. You're a good friend. Thank you so much. Tom Gormley, he was with us at the Enfield Demon House. And had an opportunity to investigate with him there. He's also been on Dark Echoes Paranormal with me. So you'll be seeing him hopefully soon. Let's see, Janice. Yeah, your grandparents were amazing. I'm very gifted. And it scares people or they beg for readings. Now, when you say your grandparents, do you mean my grandparents? Tell me about that a little bit, what you feel like you're feeling. And you are gifted and it scares people or they beg for readings. So, when I first started opening up, I was having people ask for readings and I was happy to do it because I didn't quite understand what was happening and I wanted to see what I was capable of. And eventually you get to a point where you realize, like I took classes, I knew I needed to. It isn't that I needed to I had the gift. I needed to know how to control the gift and to better deliver the messages that I needed to deliver. And it's shut off now unless I turn it on. And it is draining, but I also find that the more you're able to control it, the less draining it is. And you're saying my grandparents, and I'm assuming what you mean is my grandparents in spirit, right? Not my grandparents. Because my grandparents were absolutely amazing. However, if you did know them in person, I would love to know that. But I'm assuming you mean in spirit. They were pretty amazing people. Let's see, not only changes with age, but more with training. I would agree with that. Your psychic messages come in dreams as well. Sometimes they're scary. So that's another thing. So you say your dreams are scary. I don't get dreams like that. I go to bed and they leave me alone because I just said, that's it. I'm alone. Hang on one moment here. That is Chris. So he's trying to leave me a voice message, which I can't listen to right now because I'm on the air. So I just texted him and hopefully he'll get back to me. But I'm curious about that. Do you find, Chrissy, that your dreams are more prophetic? You know, do you? Oh, this is great. Hang on. Chris is running behind. Wants to know if he can still. Of course, the answer is yes, which is great, and that's fine. So he's going to come on. Especially communication from the other side. My son died last year, and I can feel and hear him. He does visit when I ask to see him in dreams, and I'm so sorry to hear about that. And I don't care, Janice, even when we do this work, it doesn't make grief any easier. We know where they are. We know they're around, but it's still not the same. So sorry for that and what you're going through with that. But I'm so happy that you are able to get the gift of your dreams because we don't all get that either. I wish I had that. It's just, I feel like my gift is so different. They show up when I work, and when I don't work, I don't know where they are. They're there. They're always there, but they're not necessarily communicating all the time. You know, Anna says she gets vivid dreams, and sometimes she gives people readings, but she can't do it much because it's so draining. And Anna, I really think too, you know, as I said before, I feel like that is a question of, I feel like it's a question of training, right? Once you learn to better control it, it's less draining. At least that's been my experience. I know some mediums that can't go on very long because they do get just so drained and burned out. I will get drained in a session, but it's my ability to connect, right? So they're there, but once I get tired, I lose it. I lose the connection. But I'm not going home exhausted, and I think that's the difference. Mary says, Anna is right. The energy it takes drains you, and she gets drained from doing the long session of Holy Fire Reiki without the psychic ability. Yeah, and I've heard that too. It's very interesting. So, Chris, hopefully you'll be joining us in just a moment here. He did say he's trying to get in. Let's see. Just checking with him. Need any help? That's perfect. So I know he's not missing. Go back in the chat here and see. Dreams of oh God, Mary, dreams of train and plane crashes. Yeah, that's never fun. There he is backstage. So I got to tell you, because I'm going to bring him out. He can hear me. He's backstage right now. I'm going to bring him out in just a minute. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about him because he is the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren, but he's making a name for himself, carrying on their tradition. And I found, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, this was on the Warren Legacy Foundation website, warrenlegacyfoundation.com. And you can learn about what the foundation is doing. You can learn about Chris and the team, and you can learn about his grandparents. And there's a 30-second clip that I'd love to play for you, which just, I thought it was just so intriguing. And then I'm going to bring him out. And Chris, if you can see me, can you give me a thumbs up if that's okay? I just want to play that little bit about your grandparents. It's like 30 seconds. So here we go.
The homes that we go into, we tell the people, lock the door, leave the place. It isn't even worth it for an exorcist to go in there.
Welcome, my friend, all the way from, are you in Paraguay tonight? Is that where you are? You're home?
Yeah, I'm in Asuncion, Paraguay
Yeah.
for a few months.
Oh my gosh. And I told everyone at the beginning of the show, I said, I'm going to ramble on here because hopefully he'll show up. I knew you had some place to be. And I said, if it doesn't work out, we'll do it another time. But I rambled on about as much as I could ramble. And there you were. So I said, that's wonderful.
I am so sorry. It has
Don't
been
be.
such a crazy day. I was working on 2 different cases that are very complex. Well, one of them is sad.
Yeah. I know you told me you had a tough one, and I totally appreciate that, and I can understand that. So not a problem at all. I just want to thank you for being here, though, because I think the work that you're doing and the work of the foundation is very important. But I think the fact that it carries on the legacy of your grandparents, they're almost, if I can say this, they're almost mythical in a sense. I mean, to the average person, because
In a way, actually, that's a very good description because the truth isn't the same.
I'm sure. Well, you know them in a very different way, but
Yeah.
it's sort of like, you just see them as this, these people that just powerful, and they did all of this, and they were, the demonologist and the clairvoyant and all of this. They did a lot for a lot of people and really worked on a lot of cases that people know things about. Some of it may not even be accurate because they make these crazy movies, and then you think you know what you're talking about. I think Andrea told me it's more Holly weird than Hollywood, by the time they get the movie done.
Once you sell your rights to a story, they have total creative control.
And they do what they want because they feel like that's going to sell more tickets. And I get that.
Exactly. The bottom line is all they care about.
That's it.
Yeah. No, my grandparents were wonderful people, but this is why I've never liked publicity myself. Once you're put up on a pedestal, all you can do is fall. My grandparents were human. They did their best, but this is an ongoing field of research, and they made their mistakes. One of the things that used to frustrate me was our success rate was like 50%. And that bugged me a lot. It wasn't their fault. They didn't have anybody teaching them. I had the benefit of them.
How are you gauging success? What was the success what would you consider a success? I guess is the better question.
Well, if you have to give up on a case because you cannot help them, that's not a success.
Understood. Yeah. I think too, well, and this, right? We were talking a little bit about this before. Not everything is paranormal. But people think.
Matter of fact,
so they,
my first case today looks like, now I'm not a doctor, but we had a psychologist on and a doctor on the line for this particular intake interview. And it does look like this is the first dissociative personality disorder case I've dealt with.
Really?
Yeah. But the foundation serves everyone. If you come to us believing you have a paranormal problem, we're going to help you. Period. It doesn't matter if it turns out to be paranormal or not. We're going to hook you up with the services necessary to help you.
Right. And if that means finding you the help you need to help you with your dissociative disorder, potentially connecting you with someone that has some experience in that can help you, then that's what you do. It doesn't mean you're going to go in with a spirit box and clear the house, because it may not be anything to clear. Do you know what I mean? It just may not be the case.
Exactly. Although, having said that, my next case today, and the reason I'm late, was a young woman. She's been in the house now for 12 years. The woman who lived there before her was a rather cruel woman who was very violent, liked to use a gun to threaten her neighbors. And at first, this young woman, she was only 17 when she moved in there. She actually saw this woman in the backyard looking at her and laughing at her, but she was able to put it off. But now she's got an 18-month-old and a 7-year-old, and the 7-year-old is being confronted by this ghost. So tomorrow morning, that's where I'll be, in that house, trying to first hopefully communicate with the spirit. But if not, then I'm just going to do a spiritual cleansing and try to push it out of the house.
And you are also clairvoyant, like your grandmother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you speak Spanish?
See?
You do. Yeah, that's about all I know too. It's just see.
No, I do
You do.
speak it, and the people tell me I speak it well.
That's
But
great.
the truth is, my vocabulary is limited, and I don't
course.
understand most of the things that people say to me, especially if they're speaking quickly.
Yeah, I speak Portuguese. I always say I speak Portuguese. My grandparents came from the Azores. They were from Portugal. I can speak it. I have friends from Brazil. And so I'm a little bit Brazilian Portuguese mix with but yet I have a very difficult time understanding it because they speak in so quickly, in almost a slang in some ways, and I just can't. But if they write it down, I can usually figure it out.
Oh, heck, if they write it down, I can figure it out because it's so close to Spanish. But
exactly,
the thing about Portuguese is it's similar to English. If you're in different parts of England, or if you're in New Zealand or Australia, or here, in the United States, there's so many accents, and the Portuguese can be indecipherable from one place to the next.
Yeah. Well, look at here. Sometimes I don't understand what they're saying if you drive down south of the, in the States. Like, can you repeat that again? Because what are you saying?
Exactly.
And the terminology is so different. So, yeah. But I think it's great that you're there and you're able to help people even, and I think people appreciate that you're at least able to try. It's not going to be 100%. And they know that,
No.
But they're appreciative, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Especially here, because the need is so great. They don't have anybody. This is a very empty country. There's only 7 million people in the entire country, and it's the size of California. So they don't have any reputable paranormal teams. I've looked, believe me. Wow. And I'm starting to train people here so that they can start helping. But right now the need is overwhelming. I was in another house 2 nights ago. It was the father haunting the place. His daughter missed him terribly, wouldn't let him go. So he was trying to get her attention and say, "Hey, I really am here. Don't worry." So it was beautiful. That one was beautiful.
Yeah. How is it tonight? Yeah.
¿Cómo está esta noche? It means, how are you this evening?
How are you this evening? Yeah. Well, she lives next to me, so she knows how to say it in English too. I think she just tried to show off. We know Mary Alice. I think that, in talking about the foundation too,
you should mention you're a member.
I am a member, and I mentioned that, or I think I mentioned that earlier. I did mention that earlier, but I think one of the for me, one of the greatest parts about being a member of this is not just helping people, because I am sort of a new member. I only joined back in the spring. I've only been, a short while, but I have turned so many people over to the foundation because I get calls all the time and I didn't know what to do with them. I always felt like I'm not a psychologist. I'm not trained in that. I don't have a team. I'm just me. So I'm not going to run off to some stranger's house that I don't know and don't know what's going on. And I never wanted to get involved with that, but it's so great to have this huge community behind me that I can say, here, this is who you need to reach out to. I'm a member. I may or may not be involved in your case, but that's okay. There are people who will help you, and let's start there, because someone will get your information to get back to you, and they always do. And sometimes they do, sometimes what it's like. They'll fill out the form or they won't fill out the form, but you've given them an avenue, you've given them a place, and
we're fine.
And I think that's
let's
great.
Make it clear to everyone. All of our services are free and confidential. Yes. We will never publicize anything that could identify you, ever. Also, you'd made a comment earlier a couple of times now, and I want to make it clear to other people. Just because you're having problems at home, like whether it be domestic violence or just fighting amongst yourselves, or maybe you've got a drinking problem or drug abuse issues, or again, mental illness, that doesn't rule out the paranormal. As a matter of fact,
right,
that's that's what we're looking for, to figure out, why is it manifesting negatively in your home? Why are you having these problems? And yeah, then we're going to treat it holistically. We have to treat all of it, not just one part. It's just like if you go in for cancer treatment, they're not going to only treat one part. They're going to treat you completely. And we have to do the same. Otherwise, things can reoccur.
Would you think that the paranormal, whatever is affecting some of these folks paranormally, preys on people who might have other issues, whether it's illness or mental illness or whatever it might be? You know, that they kind of go hand in hand in some. They're not exclusive. You know, you have one or the other, I think.
Well, my view has evolved over time. If you had asked me that question 44 years ago when I started, God, I'm old. Wow. Anyway, I would have said, yeah, the demons feed off of your energy and they're going to, you know, manifest through that. But over time, I've let go of the idea of demons the way that they're described by any particular religion, because I've seen that these things manifest according to our own religious beliefs, our own cultural beliefs. And I believe in things like tulpas or egregores, which are thought forms manifesting and taking on a life of their own, like a poltergeist. Now, a poltergeist can be a lot of things. That could be just an out-of-control psychic who's not controlling their abilities. It can be a ghost who's trying to get your attention for one reason or another and is very focused, because most ghosts don't have that kind of power. Or it could be this thought form. Now, a thought form to me, yes, it is feeding off your energy, but in a way, it's kind of like dissociative personality disorder or multiple personalities. The idea, though, here is it's a personality that literally breaks off from you and takes on a life of its own. That's what an egregore is. It's a spirit created by witchcraft to go out, complete a task, and then dissipate. But when it's done unintentionally, when it's done by accident, it's manifesting through the energy that we're feeding it. So if you're feeding it negative energy, it's going to manifest in a very negative way. And that's why we see it in all of the different, and I've lived in 105 places around the world now. The reason we see it manifest differently is because we all have different belief systems. And that includes cryptids, as far as I'm concerned. I cannot believe that there are 1,000 different types of cryptids in the country of Peru. And then, you know, you go to Greece and you've got totally different ones. To me, that these are manifestations based on our own perceptions. Perception creates reality.
But more energy based, not intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when your mind is faced with something absolutely inexplicable, it will put a face on that thing, even if that face is demonic, because that's better than the unknown. The unknown is truly terrifying.
Sure. And you
so
know,
that's how I've come to accept it. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
If you talk to other people in the foundation, some of which are archbishops or priests or psychologists, they'll all, or pagans or what have you, they're going to have their own belief system, and I have no problem with it. Our diversity is our strength. What I've found is you can manipulate the spirit world through your belief system. You can, through your religion or your spiritual practices. But I don't believe that we should use those to define what we're dealing with. I think that's limiting. And I'm very comfortable with the unknown. I learned in college about the power of labeling theory and how human beings need to put everything in a little box. You mentioned that I'm a clairvoyant. I would never use that label.
Right.
Because that's self-limiting. I'm whatever I need to be. You know, 2 weeks ago, I was in a temple. There was just me, my associate, and the gentleman that owned the temple, I walked around. I was doing things I've never done before. I was catching on to a person with a heart problem because I was sitting in his chair. I was sitting in another chair. I was like, yeah, this person who's in charge of the temple has zero spiritual beliefs whatsoever. That's not the reason they're there. And it was all confirmed by the man who owns the temple. So if I had told myself, oh, I can't do that, or that's not what I am, then it wouldn't have happened.
Right. And I agree with you. And I think that beyond this existence, beyond this world, it is limitless. It's not, we try to humanize everything. And I think that's just what we do as people, right? We humanize everything. We're male, we're female, we're whatever we are. It's not like that. We even do that with religion, you know?
Yeah.
Everything's sort of humanized and fits in this nice little neat package because that's how our human minds can understand it. But can you imagine what it must be like when you finally journey on to that other dimension and it's like mind blown, because it's nothing, it's not human at all. It's devoid of all of that.
We're not going to be running in green fields and playing with Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. It's not like that. The truth is I struggled with my faith my whole life. Because I'm a very intellectual person. And I was always trying to understand the mind of God. Then it dawned on me what an egotistical ass I was, that I could possibly understand the mind of something that is in charge and created the universe. The universe. I found my faith when I accepted my ignorance. So what is God? I can't define God. I'm like one of the three blind men touching an elephant. One's touching the trunk, says it's a snake. Next one's touching a leg, says, no, it's a tree. The other one's touching the tail, says it's a rope.
Right.
No, we're just barely getting a hint of whatever God is. So my faith comes from accepting my ignorance and believing God will put me where I'm needed. I'm just one thread in his infinite tapestry.
And that is very much the case, because I think when you, at least in my case, when I said, okay, I trust whatever it is, whoever you are, spirit, God, whatever it is, right? Everything just sort of lines up the way it's supposed to be. That's how it's always felt, because you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're following your journey. You're following your path. And so I agree with that. And, not to make it terribly religious, but I agree with you completely. And I think, religion to a certain extent is this humanization for us. It's for our benefit to help us understand.
My favorite proverb is from Hinduism. There are many paths up the mountain. It's only the fool running around the bottom saying you're going the wrong way that never gets closer to the top. I don't care what your religion is. That doesn't mean a thing to me. It's your intention to have a closeness to God. It's your compassion and your empathy. Religion, to me, isn't necessary for a spiritual connection to God. Don't get me wrong. It can lead you there. I just don't think it's necessary.
Right. I believe in the intention 100%. It's what kind of a person do you want to be? Are you growing? Are you looking to, it's let's see. Where is this here? Janice is saying that I agree with everything Chris said. She says, I feel the same. I think a lot of people do. I don't know if you see this as well, Chris, but there seems to be this awakening collectively. People are having this spiritual awakening. I feel like I see more and more people kind of shifting their thought and shifting about how they feel about life and energy and religion, spirit, and all of this, and becoming more aware of, maybe they have gifts. Maybe they have some kind of gifts that they're discovering that they never knew they had. And I think that, to me, kind of happens when you just say, you stop for a minute, get the world out of your head, and you start thinking in different ways. It starts to show up. Alice is saying, Mary Alice says, oh my God, I went through the exact same thing, knowing that there is a God, but accepting my ignorance about him, trusting that he knows what's best for me. And I left religion at 12 years old. Yeah, but you didn't leave God. You leave the religion because the religion is the human part of it. Whereas God or whatever you want to call. I don't even want to say him because that's human, right? That's it. You got to think differently and a little outside the box. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I have a question about the foundation. Was this foundation, was it going at the time your grandparents were here and you just carried it on, or did you form it in order to do their work after they were gone?
Actually, my grandmother and I formed it together. My grandfather had already passed, but the first movie was coming out. People were contacting us from all over the world. I had already been all over the world. I'd been in the Peace Corps. I'd, had a business in Nepal for 7 years, helping the women in the mountains to sell their things in the United States. And I'd also worked with volunteers all over in a couple of jobs. So I thought, Graham, people in like France have never heard of New England. The New England Society for Psychic Research, that's fine as a local thing, but they've heard of you. I want to carry on your name around the world. And she loved the idea. So that's how the foundation was born.
What would you like people to know about them?
We're here to help, period. We're not going to judge you.
Right.
All we ask is that you understand we need you to be complete in what you're sharing with us. It's like going to the doctor because you've got literal pain in your butt, and you talk about your hangnail. I'm going to help you with the hangnail, then I'm not going to be able to help you with the pain in the butt. So
yeah,
you have to be brave and tell us what's really happening so that we can truly help you.
And too, that you used the word brave, and I think you really do need to be brave. You have to be brave because I think when you're going through these things, you really do feel like you will be judged because you feel crazy. And there are stuff that we learn about with people and families, and we don't judge, right? You know that, but they don't. They have to trust. They have to have the trust that we're not going to look at them differently, that we really are going to help them no matter what they say. And I think that's hard for a lot of people, but you approach it in such a nice way. And I think that's really, I feel like we're on you and I have talked about this a little bit about on a journey to make the foundation more accessible and more known on this international skills so that people can get the help they need no matter where they are and feel that they have to. You do have members pretty much. I mean, they're international, but I'm sure there are places.
Not everywhere. I wish they were. And for anybody who might be interested, you should understand we're looking for experienced people with real skills, people who aren't in this to have the Warren name attached to them, because I could care less about that myself. If you're in this for ego, you're not in this for the right reasons, and you're pushing God out. And to me, this is God's work, and I don't mean that in a religious way, but I'm dealing with the spirit world, and that's His realm, not mine. I need God on my side to keep doing the work I do. So yeah, we're always looking for good people. They can always go to the foundation website, which is either Warren Files, Warren Foundation, Warren Legacy Foundation.com. All of those work. And just click on the contact us link. You can either apply or you can ask for help. I realize this is in English, so it doesn't matter, but our form is also in Spanish and English.
And I think it's fair to say too, now like I said, I've only been in since last spring, March or April or whatever it was. And I've never gone to a house.
No,
and I've talked to people in the foundation who have been in for 5 years and never been to a house, because the work starts before you even step foot. So, you can't get involved thinking like, oh, I'm going to be on a team now. I can go investigate every weekend. That's not it. You have to be in it for the right reason. It's really about helping people.
We're not the public venue type of people. We're not going to go to the haunted asylums and the hospitals and so forth. Don't get me wrong. I'm in Paraguay, and 150 years ago, 90% of the male population was killed, and 80% of the complete population was murdered, including most of the children. I am going to go to some of these battlefields to see if I can help some of those souls pass over. But I'm going there with that intention.
Approach it with love. Approach it with
Yeah.
love. I spent the weekend a few weeks ago at a place that's affectionately known as, and I say affectionately in a comical way, as the Demon House, because
Well, I've
Animal
heard of it.
Planet had been on there and did a show, and that kind of thing. We weren't approaching it that way. In fact, we're trying to convince the family to not call it that. I don't think, you know what I mean? They want to change the vibe. It's not a demon house. It's not, we were in the basement and there were 3 of us that were sensitive, and we just crossed and crossed and crossed. We were just sending them, and you just hear them saying goodbye, see you, we're leaving, I see the light, and we were picking it up on a recorder. I mean, it was incredible, but it was like they were lining up to go, and I feel like that's the work. It gives me goosebumps. That's the work that's just so heartwarming, because you're doing something for the soul. It's not just the family in the house as well. I mean, those people, those spirits were people, right? And they're moving on. One of the most difficult things for me has always been having to go to a location where they make you sign something that you won't cross anyone over.
Yeah, I wouldn't listen to that ever. What are they going to do? Are they going to prosecute you for getting rid of their ghosts?
I'd like to see that come up in a court of law, right? But I think it's just, they're not zoo animals. They're not animals in a cage. They're human. Well, I mean, they're not human, but they were human.
No, wait a minute. Wait. Yes, they are. And that's what I want people to understand. The living and the dead, the only difference is I'm driving a car right now. When this breaks down, I'm going to get out.
Right.
But I'm still human when I die.
Right.
I don't treat the living or the dead differently. They're the same to me.
Oh, 100%. And that's my point. I mean, they were living, breathing people. Now they're just deceased. I mean, they're spirits, but they're not. It's not.
They're not slaves.
They're not. They're not. And if they don't want to cross, they don't want to cross. But at least we're giving them the opportunity to move forward. And exactly. I think it's beautiful. Christopher Brown. Too. Hi, Chris. Yeah. Hi, Chris. Nice to see you. Christopher Brown. Another psychic. Yeah. I think that's and I think I agree with you on that. And I sort of have always felt like if I was going to cross someone over, I don't have to sit in the living room and do it. I'll go out in my car and do it and connect with them that way. There, I mean, what are they going to say? There it is. But
it's funny. I was in a university about a week ago. Matter of fact, nicest people here. I got to tell you, if you ever get the chance to come to Paraguay, everybody, you should. It's a wonderful place. But make sure you come during your summer, my winter, because otherwise, like this weekend, it's going to be 101 degrees. It's spring.
Wow.
But having said that, I was in the university, and all of a sudden, I get a spiritual tap on the shoulder, and there's this woman that died during the pandemic. And she was so excited that I was there. It was the greatest feeling, because she was trying to get a hold of the man I was with to let him know she was okay, and to talk to her husband, who would not let her go. So it was a real beautiful experience. And that's the kind of thing we want to do.
I think that's the quote unquote the God's work. I mean, I think that's it. How many souls did you help today? How many people did you help today? And I think that's what it's all about. And you don't have to be connected with a particular religion or anything. You're just doing the work because it feels like the right thing to do. And that's what I love about it. And that's what I love about the foundation. So you are coming to the States. Is that October? I'm trying to remember when you're here. October, right?
I think I'm flying in. I think I get there on the 16th. And I'm staying until the 28th.
So
I'm not there long.
No, just a short time. You have an event in Shelburne. Is it Shelburne Falls? Is that where you're going to be?
Well, it's outside of Shelburne Falls at a theater in Massachusetts. And then I've got another one, October 20th. And this one I'm especially excited about because it's in one of my hometowns. It's in Newtown, Connecticut. And when I was a kid, I used to go to the Newtown Town Hall to watch movies. and that's where we're going to be. And it's a haunted town hall, so it should be fun.
Wonderful. How can people get tickets for this if they want to come see you and be a part of it? Is it?
Well, if you go to my Facebook channel, if you go to my Facebook page, there is a link to the Newtown Town Hall event. But you can also reach out to me either on Instagram or on Facebook, and I'll find it for you. Honestly, I wish I could just say, here, go here. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all right. But, and I'm going to be I have an event in Ohio that weekend, but I want to see if I can get down to see you at one of these. 20th, I think that's the day I'm actually booked in Ohio, I think is the 20th, but maybe one of these other days because I have to come back to Connecticut. The 26th. That's the one in Shelburne or near Shelburne Falls. Yeah, it's not the Shea Theater, is it? It's not the Shea Theater. Is it the Shea Theater? Is that what you?
No, I think it's like Greenfield Hills or something.
Oh, Greenfield. Okay, yeah, that's near there too. Greenfield Hills. Yeah, I'd love to get out there to see you in person because it's easier to go there than Paraguay, at least in the short term, anyway. Yeah,
it's a 24 to 29 hour flight, depending on which flight, either going to or coming back, because of the layovers. It's going to be a killer. That's why I have time in the United States.
Where is Paraguay set? Because I'm not looking at a map, but like if you
Brazil is to my east, Argentina is to my south and west, and Uruguay is to my north.
Okay, because when I'm
in the belly button of South America.
Gotcha. When I've traveled to Brazil, it was a lot longer than I expected it to be. And part of it is the layover, but part of it is the curvature of the earth. You feel like it takes a lot longer to get here, and then come back down again because of the curvature of the earth.
Yep. I have to go through, last time I did this, I had to go through Brazil to get back to Paraguay. So it's even longer.
Oh God. Yeah. Long. Yeah. And then the flights never fly the way they're supposed to fly,
Nope. I had an overnight in one place.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to, and of course the flight was delayed. So I got stuck in Sao Paulo, and then I had to spend the night in Sao Paulo. Thank God I knew how to ask for a taxi and get to my hotel, Other than that, I'd have been up a creek. I didn't want to spend it in the airport. Oh, look who's here. Okay. Yes, Tammy Christine Radin. Hi, Tammy. How are you? Nice to see you. Yeah, we like Tammy. She's been on the show before. She's great. Yeah.
She's also a major part of the foundation and absolutely wonderful human being.
Is. She's wonderful.
Oh, and by the way, an amazing psychic medium.
She is. And she runs the psychic medium group and does the weekly stuff with the group. So I was very, very grateful to be friends with her and to have her on. So it's just wonderful.
Have you told people about the group?
About which group? The psychic group?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
not specifically tonight. No, I haven't.
Well, for those out there who believe that they are gifted, whether it be just empaths or all the way up to mediums, if you are looking for a community, a safe community, a private community, we have one online on Facebook. Just reach out to us. Tammy will be the one that is our gatekeeper. So she'll be the one talking to you.
Blushing.
Nope, sorry, right. We're not stopping.
Oh my God, that's funny. Yeah. So, Chris, what would you like to share? Because we're coming near the. I know we're coming near the. You seem like you just got here, but we're coming near the end of the.
I know. I'm
so
sorry.
So don't be. I'm so grateful you were able to join us. But is there anything you'd like to share about what you got going on, the foundation that we haven't talked about already?
A few things. Very quickly. How about this? Remember that if you hear a tap on the door, a knock, what have you, I had it happen to me 3 nights ago on my door. I was like, okay, I'm not putting up with you tonight. I'm coming to your house tomorrow. You're not allowed to disturb me again. And then it turned out to be a man who just wanted me to know he was there for his daughter. It's usually not the devil. It's usually somebody who cares, somebody who has unfinished business or is confused and needs help. You're not haunted forever as a psychic, but you are a beautiful light in their darkness, and you're going to attract spirits over and over again. Lay down spiritual guidelines. Make sure each day you state them out loud. This is what I will accept. This is what I will not accept. For instance, when I light a white candle at my table, that's when you're allowed to come and talk to me. No other time. Make it clear, because most people, living and dead, if you tell them the rules, they follow your rules. Other than
That's
that,
true.
Also, I would like to say that your fear is the real enemy, because most experiences could end up being incredibly beautiful. It's probably your grandmother checking on you and not the devil.
That is, you were right on. It very well could be. Very, very well could be. So I'm going to ask you one more thing before we close. Do you have, obviously your grandparents were involved in some of the famous cases, Amityville and some of these others. Do you have a story that you can share about any of those famous cases that people might not know about?
You telling me. The haunting in Connecticut.
Well, all right.
I was going to say the haunting in Connecticut was one of my cases. I was the lead investigator.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Or Maurice Theriault, he was Frenchie in the movie The Nun. By the way, The Nun's not real, for anyone who didn't know that.
Yep.
But that case changed my life. But I do talk about it a lot. Amityville, that case, everybody wants to say isn't true, didn't happen. My grandparents were invited on that case by Channel 5 out of New York. And the night before they were to go, it was 3:00 in the morning. My grandfather was in the museum in his office working. My grandmother was waiting for him up in the bedroom with her 2 dogs. She was reading a biography on Padre Pio. And my grandfather heard I call it the dungeon door that led to the hallway down to the museum. Ugly, ugly hallway. Scared that crap out of me as a kid. And he thought, oh, it's Lorraine. She's coming and bringing me a cup of coffee. So he said, Lorraine, I'm back here. And then he realized he'd only heard 3 steps. Then the desk light flickered on and off. He could see his breath coming out. And he knew something was coming. He said it sounded like a whirlwind coming down the hallway. And as he grabbed his crucifix and holy water and went out into the office, this thing slammed through the next door and swirled around, went to the other side of the museum to where Annabelle was. No connection to Annabelle, just happened to be there. As it started to solidify, my grandfather went after it, throwing holy water on it and saying, by the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone. Again, coming after it again, saying, by the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone. And then it swirled around again and it went back down the hallway. My grandfather knew it was going for my grandmother, but he wasn't going to go down the hallway. You don't want to get caught in a tight space like that. So instead, he went out the back door and he's running outside, up the stairs to the porch and then into the kitchen, hearing what sounds like animals fighting to the death. No animals were actually fighting. There were no animals doing anything, as far as we know, but that's the sounds he was hearing. And my grandmother, in the meantime, she hears this thing coming after her and it's slamming around the living room and the dining room. She says it sounded like it was searching for her. I knew it knew exactly where she was. But then it came in a black whirlwind straight into the bedroom and it started to materialize. The dogs were hidden behind her, whimpering. And she was terrified. She didn't know what to do. She ended up grabbing either her rosary, I believe it was, and she just brandished it in front of her just as my grandfather came slamming through the back door to the kitchen. Then this thing swirls around again, goes out into the living room, and as my grandfather's coming through the kitchen, it heads into the dining room toward him, and then up the chimney in the dining room. There's a fireplace, and my grandfather said that's when he knew this was going to be an extraordinary case. And my grandmother said That case was as close to hell as she ever hoped to get.
Oh my gosh. Do you think, I mean, this is all conjecture, right? Because nobody goes there. But do you think that they are still suffering, the people that live there now?
Actually, I was speaking to a man who is friends with the female reporter that went into the house with my grandparents. People should also understand, any of those photos that you see online of Amityville, my grandparents didn't take any of them.
Oh,
they were taken by news photographers. So when you see that little kid staring out of the bedroom door, that was taken by a news photographer. Some people have said it was me. I'm like, hell no, I was afraid of the dark back then. I wasn't going in there.
Is that the one where Padre Pio showed up? Was that Amityville?
That was the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The one where you see his face in the moose's antlers, looking down at my grandmother. Yeah. Yep. But I'm sorry, I lost track of what I was saying.
About you started talking about.
Yes, no. So this reporter has stayed in touch with every single person and family that's owned the house since then. And she claims that every single family has had some problem or another. The turnover on that house, no one lasts there for more than a couple of years.
Really?
The last one I heard about was about 5 years ago when they were selling it. And the husband, he was only in his early 40s, I believe, just dropped dead of a heart attack. And the wife swears it was the house.
Really? And the house is beautiful, because I've seen photos of it online. It was for sale, and the house is stunning. I mean, they've done work in it, and it's absolutely beautiful. That doesn't mean it's any less haunted.
They actually moved it to a new address, and they got rid of the iconic windows.
They actually picked up the house and moved it?
Yes.
Or they changed it?
No, it's at a totally different address.
Wow. Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, it's do you think, so this is another theory. I have no idea whether this is reality or not. Do you think that the haunting brought on the mental illness, which brought on the murders? Or do you think the murders brought on the haunting?
Well, Ron DeFeo Jr., he was reputedly a heroin addict. He had gotten into Satanism. He was doing animal sacrifice in the basement in this small cubbyhole room. And he had a lot of problems with his dad. His dad was a rough, miserable kind of guy from all accounts. He was literally a used car salesman. And I'm not sure if he actually came under possession. The only thing I can say with absolute certainty, and this is what makes me think that there was absolutely something already going on there. Everybody was found dead, laying down, face down in their beds. If you were a parent and somebody just shot your husband next to you or your wife next to you,
right?
Wouldn't you have moved?
Why is everybody not even? Yeah, you'd think people would be up in the hallways. Why did nobody hear these guns going off?
Oh, and that's the thing. In Long Island, in Amityville, the houses are really close to each other. They have long strips of land down to the lake or wherever, the river or whatever it was. But the houses are close, and nobody heard it go off. Now, I do believe, though, that the oldest girl was found in the hallway, but everyone else was found face down in bed.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to think that they would have stayed face down.
I think that I think they were aware of what was happening around them. I think it was like sleep paralysis or phantomania, and they were held in place. Just to terrify them even more. They knew it was coming.
Yeah. It's just horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Oh, and this is another thing my grandfather told me. His mother died at the same exact time as the DeFeo family. That same night, approximately the same hour and everything.
Really? So he lost his mom.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying there was any connection, but
no.
It's an eerie coincidence.
It's an eerie coincidence that he lost his mom, which would have been your great grandmother.
Yes.
At the same time that this was taking place. Wow.
Yeah.
We have a house here in town where I live that we had just moved here. So it was 19. What year was Amityville? It was 70 something, right?
Yeah, it was 76, and then 77, the Lutzes moved in.
So I think this would have been, because it was New
No,
Year's.
no, 75. The Lutzes were there in the winter, I think, of 76. And then my grandparents were there a few months later in 77. That, I think, is the timeline.
This house in town, it was New Year's Eve. I believe it was, I think it was New Year's Eve, 74 to 75. So it was December 31st, 1974. Daughter was out with her boyfriend and, friends on New Year's Eve. And she came home to find her father, her mother, and her brother murdered in the house, shot. All three of them were shot. He was a doctor. She was, I don't know, wife of a doctor, I guess. I don't know if she did anything else. But supposedly there's a lot of activity in that house, and they've had people, not being able to stay there either. I don't know anything about that, but it's just an interesting parallel, same kind of thing, to come home and find your house, your family slaughtered,
Well, trauma induces the ghost phenomena.
Yeah.
People are caught in that moment, and they're incredulous. They're in denial of what's happened to them. Sometimes, and tragically, a mother or a father will stay trying to find their lost child, and the child may have passed over, but the parent won't pass over because they're terrified the child's still there somewhere.
Why do you think it turns negative, though? Because clearly, if they were good people and kind people while they were here, where does the negativity come from?
I think that's more residual haunting that you're talking about, that energy there manifesting. And remember, it's going to interact with the people who are in the house. 10 different families can live in a house and never have a problem. But if you're like, sadly, the Lutzes, they already were similar to the DeFeos. They already had a lot of family problems. George Lutz was the stepfather. The kids didn't really get along with him. He was a former Marine. He was a Hell's Angel. It was a rough and tumble family.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of the reason it manifested the way it did. And also, sometimes what we think is negative isn't necessarily truly negative. In other words, let's say somebody or something throws your iPad against the wall. Mm-hmm. Ghosts don't have fine motor control most of the time. If it's an explosion of energy because they're desperate to get your attention. And we can interpret it as something terrifying and horrible. And believe me, if my iPad flies across the room, I'm going to be pretty unhappy. But it doesn't actually mean that was their intention. That's why it needs somebody like you to go in or Tammy to go in and talk to the spirit and try to help understand what is actually going on. Sometimes that spirit is terrified. And that's something people need to keep in mind too. They don't necessarily know what's happening. Remember the Nicole Kidman movie, The Others?
Yes.
Fantastic example of what it's like to be caught not knowing that you're dead.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And we could be looking at two different things. You've got the spirits who are traumatized, but you have the residual energy from the violence that is being manifested and causing havoc. It's not necessarily the spirits that are there that are the negatives. It's the
exactly. And yet again, though, we should keep in mind that that's why half of the job is trying to figure out what we're actually dealing with. Right. It's never that simple. That's just one possible explanation for why it's that way in one house. It could be that person is so traumatized that, they're acting out in a negative way as well.
Right. Can you get rid of something that's more residual?
It's not as easy. You can spiritually cleanse a home. And if you do, now people always want to just, smudge, light some sage, walk around and, I've done it. No, you haven't.
No, you got to keep.
That only lasts for about 2.5 hours. What you need to do is combine it with a ritual and your very clear intention and your belief that ritual is going to work if you want to be successful. that's one of the things I love about the paranormal, is it teaches me to be very hopeful about the power we have in us, what we can do to shape reality. I have been with my cousin in a bed in our sleeping bags that was thrown across the room by a 10-year-old with his mind. How much power does it take to throw two grown men across the room with the bed?
That's crazy.
But if you can do that intentionally, imagine what we're capable of. You know, I've seen what Tibetan monks can do with their minds. It's extraordinary. Or sadhus in India. We have amazing abilities when we have the discipline to use it properly. And when we don't, that's when we often get negative hauntings.
That makes sense. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for joining us, even though it was later into the show. But you know what? I appreciate it. We probably would have stopped 20 minutes ago had you been here on time. So I think we got it all in. And I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful for you and the foundation for taking me in, because it's been absolutely wonderful. Chris, I'm going to ask you to hang in for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to shut the show down. And then I'd love to just chat with you for just a minute privately after we get off the call. Everybody, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for being here, as always, on Wednesday evening. And please, please, if you feel so inclined, give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. Check out the Warren Legacy Foundation. See the work that they do. And as always, stay well and stay safe. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today for Spirit Talk Live with Scott Allen. Please remember to subscribe to Spirit Talk Live on YouTube and